If you can bring yourself to understand how broken the system is and you can't change it from within the Democratic Party, you're going to seek out open source candidates who are this, what did you say, defund politics? I like that.
Welcome back to From Dirt We Grow. I am your host, Stephanie Kendall, and I have always the unfiltered truth for you, as well as the deep dives into the real conversations that it will take to hopefully make some real changes out here. I've been highlighting these different candidates running for Congress, for governor, and various states, various districts around the nation. And even though they're state specific now, these things matter across the nation because we have to be able to keep our voices open. We, the people, need to be heard, and we need to be able to say we are going to stand up to do that. So let's listen to what these men and women have to say and what they're running for and why they're showing up now. Why is Mr. Winston Jordan running for New Jersey District 12 right now? Hello and welcome to the show.
Hello. Thanks for having me, Stephanie.
I'm happy to have you. So yeah, why now? Have you been in politics long or is this something new because of what's going on?
I like to say that I've been a political backseat driver in terms of following politics since Reagan and expecting to be able to reach out to members of Congress, my House representative. I've left comments on the White House page when Obama was there. I've reached out to Cory Booker under the first Trump term, and I sort of, through communicating with him on a debate he was having, got him introduced to Michelle Alexander, who wrote, the book on Jim Crow. And there's at least some evidence that he adopted this because he took up Michelle Alexander's update on systemic racism, and that led to him working with Trump on some mass incarceration policy. So that's what I used to do. But after Kamala lost, I just thought, you know what? I have too much information that gets ignored. If I am fortunate enough to win my seat as a nonpartisan, as an independent, I don't have to depend on somebody else. That's what kind of drove me.
Are you a programmer or like a coder or something?
So I am a systems engineer going back to, I guess, 1984. I'm an autodidact. It was a hobby before it became a profession. And then I've just come up through the corporate ranks. I've done business analysis, systems analyst, systems engineer. And then once you get into management, at least the route that I took was project manager and program manager. But keeping a hand in the computer science space so that as I'm running these large scale projects, I know the job of everyone on the team on the business side and the technical side so that I can support them when they run into issues so you can keep the project on budget, on schedule. My skill set kind of expanded to avoid failure on managing large projects, multi-million dollar, multi-year projects.
So yeah, what we're talking about is if you go to policy.winstonforcongress.com, Mr. Jordan here has basically written his own AI website, I would call it. So you can go in here and ask him anything. You said it's in your voice, like it's exactly what you would say if you were talking.
I would hope that I can measure up to the answers that come there, but I've channeled myself into it. So it can actually do a better job of answering the questions. It's a policy chatbot. You can basically ask it, how would Winston eliminate poverty? If you try to ask it something that's going to embarrass me, it'll keep you straight.
What will it do? Will it lie? It won't lie.
No,
No.
it will tell you, listen, if you try to ask it a question to embarrass or disparage me, it will say, I'm here to answer policy questions.
Okay. Yeah, I'm looking through here. You've got 5 policies on this, and it's like everything. Everything is listed. Anything you would want to know: cost of living relief, transportation, environmental protection, economic guarantees, healthcare. I mean, you've got everything covered here. So all you gotta do is click on it, and if you want to know its policies, here it is, right here on policy.winstonforcongress.com. Well, if you do get to the floor, and let's put that in the air right now, what would be the first thing you would do?
So the best way to understand what an open source candidate, which is what I am, which is not a party, right? We're anti money and anti party. If you set up a party, that means you have to set up a financial infrastructure, and that attracts bad guy money, and it basically compromises independence. This is a unique time in our history as far as what technology allows. Just the fact that I'm getting this media exposure, it's a good time to test out running for office with no money, because there's enough social media and independent media platforms to get the word out. And everybody also has a cell phone. I'm in New Jersey 12, so there's a 90% adoption of mobile technology. So, everybody has a media receptacle in their hand. And so you can get your message out, unlike years ago where you had to rely on traditional media and you had to do ad buys and things like that. So that's part of this test of the system through open source candidate. So open source candidate does not take any donations, and you're capped at $4,999 for your campaign. So that's one pillar. The other is more to the question that you asked: what do I do if I was elected? So FDR had a speech that he gave, his 1944 State of the Union address. He was already kind of sick, and he gave it from his desk instead of, in a joint session in the Capitol. So he wanted, after World War II, to work on getting a second Bill of Rights for the American people to guarantee economic security. And there were 8 rights that he wanted in there, and we're picking that mantle up. We want to repair all of the damage that all of the New Deal opponents have inflicted on the American people since Ronald Reagan and even a little before, but accelerating with Ronald Reagan. All these guys have done is just destroy the New Deal, right? Some of the Social Security, the upward mobility that we had in the American system. So we want to put everything that Ronald Reagan and neoliberalism broke back to pre Reagan. That's for starters. But in addition to that, we want what the blueprint that FDR laid down in that address. So he wanted us to have access to education, jobs, more than, well, let's call it a livable wage. He actually mentions having enough money for recreation, not just making ends meet. He wanted us to have a fair business environment without fear of monopolies. He wanted farmers to have a fair market to bring their goods to market where they could sustain themselves, again, with livable income. He wanted us to have healthcare access and retirement and the right to a home. So there's 8 rights that he wanted us to have. He died 15 months after that speech, but we need to pick up FDR 2.0 and add to it the protection of human dignity from AI, robotics, and automation.
That sounds like a great America.
Sure, sure. The actual economic nuts and bolts, the detail, are on Winston for Congress/FDR. It lays out the budget. On my TikTok profile, it is a pinned post. But essentially, instead of supply side economics, which is what we've been living through, which is really a criminal enterprise that has been wrapped in academia to give it legitimacy, and through capturing government, changing laws to allow, upward wealth transfer at the expense of our collective economic security and at the expense of the middle class getting smaller and increasing poverty and suffering in the country. We would need something on the scale of, and I know that this won't happen overnight, but if you remember that South Africa had the Truth and Reconciliation hearings to help that transition out of apartheid, to heal to at least try to heal their country, we would need something on the order of that.
Yeah, you're right.
to basically look back at how the government was manipulated by the opponents of the New Deal to create this robber baron kleptocracy, in the American economy, right? One of the things that we would need to do is hold the system and the key players accountable. This is a generational theft that took place. I'll give you an example. Oracle is getting ready to make some major moves to capture our media infrastructure. So they're saying that all of these people who are billionaires, they deserve it. Here's the Oracle story. So basically, back in the 60s or in the 50s, there was a grant that's given R&D. So the taxpayer is paying to try to discover something, to figure something out. And there was a goal. They wanted to create a relational database. So as that investment is happening, there's plenty of failures before you get to success. So that's the money that the American people have been investing. You normally do some sort of a partnership between government, academia. In this case, it was IBM. So they got to that eureka moment where they created the technology for relational database. The CIA was the agency that was really pushing for this, and they were, I guess, the sponsors of the program who were paying for the partnership. After it was discovered and it worked, they tapped a guy named Larry Ellison on the shoulder and said, "Hey, the American taxpayer just created this thing and it's got incredible profit potential and market application. Why don't you take it, create a company with it, and sell it back to the American people, and let's privatize the profit?" That's Oracle. And the internet follows the same pattern. We invested in the internet. Clinton gave it away. Clinton created the legal structure where we would get no royalties for that infrastructure that we invested in. And now we have Amazon and Facebook and those guys.
And billionaires galore. Yeah.
Right, but they didn't have to pay the same way that Amazon uses our public streets and then dodges taxes, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And don't forget that when these guys don't pay their fair share, then the American people don't have enough money in the treasury to pay the country's bills. So what do? When we have a shortfall, we borrow money. How do you borrow money? You create bonds. Who buys the bonds? The same guys who decided not to pay their taxes. So we pay them interest for having screwed us on not paying their taxes. The whole thing just kind of compounds. It is what the mafia does, right? Made legal, right? A skimming operation, right? So they're skimming off the American public, so many different ways. So like all of that needs to just stop. And like I said, it's the scale of it is, on the order of the opium wars, what was done to China. So they took that same model and basically aimed it at the American people.
It goes so much deeper than people in everyday life even conceive. You know. Can we go back to what you were talking about? This is a point for me. Like it hits home for me about the inequalities. I want to know all I can about it and to get the education out there. Well, who did you say? Michelle Alexander?
She was a criminal defense lawyer. She came to write the book by let's say being brainwashed that there's no systemic racism, that people of color who get into trouble with the law, they brought it on themselves. And so she had one case where she was helping this young black guy, and he said that the police in Los Angeles planted the dope on him, and she didn't believe him. And she worked with his case. Then the news broke that there was a corrupt group of officers who were doing exactly what that client of hers told her. And she said she had like this moment of reckoning where she had to like get right with herself.
She was born in Wisconsin.
She's gone underground. She gained so much notoriety. She is like, I would say, an extension of MLK, like come back to life to like finish some work. That's how important her work was.
Wow. Wow. So she kind of had like a totally epiphany and flipped.
She did. Out of like just understanding how she had been brainwashed by the system. But the work that she ended up creating, it's everything you need to know except EEOC, right? I think she has a blind spot in her book. She doesn't talk about Equal Employment Opportunity Commission and how under Ronald Reagan, that civil rights legacy agency that was enforcing and actually making some progress on getting rid of systemic racism. Ronald Reagan weaponized it by putting Clarence Thomas to head the commission for all 8 years, practically the whole 8 years that he was in office. Longest serving Equal Employment Opportunity Commissioner in the agency's history. And he was so bad for the agency that when he took over, Sears was in the middle of a lawsuit with the government, the lawsuit brought by Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. And right out of the gate, Clarence Thomas made public statements that were, I guess, sympathetic to the defense. And this lawsuit had to do with disparities in hiring or biases in hiring women.
Okay. So they were violating the EEOC.
Right. So back before Reagan, EEOC didn't wait for people to come forward and make a complaint. They actually used statistical data that all companies over a certain size had to submit their own demographic, which ethnic groups were
Which is
making.
kind of where DEI was born from, right? Like that data.
Well, there's something called EEO1 data. So large companies have to annually submit this information: how many employees, how many women, disabled, right?
Right, right.
Right. And then what are their pay bands and things like that. So the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission used to just look at that data and go, well, wait a minute now. There's
You're in
no this
violation.
group here,
Yeah.
but you're surrounded by it in that particular city. You know what I mean? Like,
Oh, yeah, yeah. Okay.
so anyway, they were in the middle of this lawsuit that they would have won because they were on a winning streak back then. Clarence Thomas and Ronald Reagan come in to take over the agency, and the comments that Clarence Thomas made led to the defense legal team asking the judge, could Clarence Thomas join their legal team?
Wow. What? That was allowed? Like they did it happened?
No, the
Oh.
judge
Like
absolutely
what
not.
is going on?
So, like, that's how bad he was. And then, of course, the rest is history. Now, if you want to sue an employer where you think that you have a case, EEOC is actually a gatekeeper now. It costs around $30,000 just to get the green light to sue your employer. You can't sue
What?
your employer directly. That's why there's no ambulance chaser lawyers in that field, right?
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
Because most people don't have the money to just get the green light from EEOC. And then you'd need money to then, actually have the
Before
lawsuit
the
with the
lawyer.
employee.
Yeah. Wow.
So he turned it into a gatekeeper, a barrier, which is the same as weaponizing it. It was meant to fix the problem. It is a barrier. And not to mention the funding for EEOC adjusted for inflation is the same as back in the 80s. And you have the Congressional Black Caucus, which is definitely in their wheelhouse, and they've done nothing for 50 years. And the funding, funding something in the government is a value statement. So, show me your budget and I'll tell you what your priorities are. Between the National Science Foundation and Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, those are the two agencies that battle for last place and next to last place in terms of the budget. And it's so bad that if you do this comparison adjusting for inflation, there's actually 1 year, I'm sure this is accidental, but there's 1 year in Donald Trump's first term where he funded EEOC higher than Obama.
Uh, I'm sure that was administrative error or something.
We should get back what we had and make it better.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah. Make it better for sure.
Like, it was discriminatory back then, but the middle class had
It wasn't middle class.
yeah, exactly. You could raise a family on one income, own a car, own a home,
Have
and
kids.
have kids in school on one income. You know what I mean? So My FDR program is to like let's get rid of all these universal basic income pilots that they're doing all over the country. We've already learned everything we need to know, and we already knew it before we had the pilot. But now you have data from doing the pilot. So let's get the word basic out of the name of the program and provide universal income to every adult American 18 and over. You're guaranteed a $50,000 government support. If you happen to work somewhere or do something that only provides 30,000, the government will close the gap and send you 20,000 a year to protect jobs and employment. The government will be the employer of last resort, which is what they did during the Great Depression. They had the WPA program. So we can do that again. There's plenty of infrastructure work that has not been getting done because everybody's just filling their pockets, walking away with, the public trust. So I propose and I work out the financing on the taxing the wealthy and sustaining the economic system through, people at the low end. So there would be a floor for US citizens of $50,000 a year.
And that's the floor.
That's the floor. We basically wipe out poverty. Poverty comes with too many social issues that we then have a whole economic system to deal with, including incarceration.
It all ties in. It's kind of a circle. One thing affects the other, you know.
So you should wipe out poverty and desperation at the same time. You have to do something like 10 years of price controls. There's so many ways to tackle the shortage of housing that would happen because they have these tiny homes. There's so much innovation in how you very quickly surge housing. And then all these small towns that lost their economic base from NAFTA or other government programs that made their young people move to job centers in big cities. And then, you have these hollowed out towns in the Midwest that don't have any growing population because there's no industry there. People can live wherever they want. People can experiment with starting businesses. Two people getting $50,000 a year can experiment with trying to create a small business. So you'd have, some smart people who have no fear of being poor.
Taking a risk.
It's easier to take risks because the banks would know that people have regular income, and you'd have like a surge in small and medium sized businesses. And then those small and medium sized businesses would be closer to where people live. And so people would just stop using Amazon at the rate that they're using them now. And large companies, their monopolies would start to shrink. And you wouldn't even necessarily have to do something to like shrink them.
It would be automatic.
It would basically be the reverse of how we got here.
Okay. Yeah.
We got here little by little, and all you have to do is make sure that everybody has $50,000 as a minimum, and you end up reversing everything. And you actually put a dent in all this culture war stuff as well, because the culture wars is really fueled by, this group has something that you were supposed to have, and they took it away from you. That replacement theory and all of that nonsense. You're not going to wipe out all mental health issues, but all of this culture war behavior, it would have no traction except for the people on the fringe in terms of mental health.
Yeah, they need care.
Right. Healthcare would be funded by the government. There would be an anti-poverty tax that you would have to hit the wealthy with on their assets, and there's all sorts of like fancy things that they do financially, transaction-wise, that you would tax. But essentially, that would only be a temporary tax, and it would sunset after 5 years as the economy stabilizes and people are spending money into the economy to enjoy their lives, to live their lives. It turns out that the same people who got a head start at being wealthy, even though they're going to lose a lot of that wealth under like this transformative, revamp America, finish FDR's vision, they would still be at the top of the food chain in terms of wealth. It's just that you wouldn't have this income disparity of rich and poor. You'd have the whole gradient of, income classes between that wealth that they have. So you flatten that curve. You need this takeover of the House of Representatives. It has to go back to the people, right? Right now, it's not. It's captured by corporations. They learn when they swear in and get their orientation that they have to go to those call centers, they have to call donors. Those donor calls, they have to make those calls to certainly to raise money from whoever, Jeffries and Catherine Clark, the whip, tells them to call. but they're also showing fidelity that the seat that they occupy is in service to the wealthy. You had AOC not do that in her first year. She rebelled and she told the party, I'm not going to go to the call center. I'm not doing the calls. I'll raise the money. I'll raise my member dues from my community. So she basically went to her community. She was able to get small dollar donations as an incumbent member of Congress. She paid her dues, but that's not sustainable, right? Show fidelity to the ruling class and do the best you can for damage control for not being able to deliver a damn thing back to your district.
Oh,
If you want a particular career trajectory within Congress as a Democrat or as a Republican, the money you make determines which committees you can be
what part?
on, what kind of leverage you have,
Okay.
except that it's still not structural change. Do you know what I mean? Your changes that are structural are aligned with the 1% and the corporations. You can't fight that money with money. There's too much there. We can't use Mamdani's victory of $9 million to defeat $40 million as an example, because that's a mayoral race. And the donor class that's sitting on top of Congress is not the same group of people sitting on top of, how you fund a mayoral race. Although I'm sure a few of them pop their heads up and open their checkbooks to get to that 40 million.
To cover that gap.
The 9 million beat. So that's an anomaly, but it tells you kind of where public sentiment is. And we're trying to tell people that money in the system is keeping you from having your representation. If you're going to ask for Citizens United to be repealed, and you're going to ask for corporations to not be treated as people, but you still want to vote for a Democrat who happens to be able to present themselves as well supported, well financed politician, as they say, you get the government you deserve. If you can bring yourself to understand how broken the system is and you can't change it from within the Democratic Party, you're going to seek out open source candidates who are this, what did you say, defund politics? I like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, defunding politics is another way of putting what we want to do. We want an unmoneyed candidate to appeal to the masses. And actually, there's a website called find.opensourcecandidate.org that we put together. You can put your district there. Obviously, you're not going to find an open source candidate because there's 435 seats and there's only 2 open source candidates to date. We have until June. That's the deadline for getting on the ballot in most states. So we have a little bit of time to add some more open source candidates to different states. But if you go to find.opensourcecandidate.org and you put your district in, it will actually ask you if you want to become an open source candidate and then connect you with your Secretary of State and give you some of the foundational information you need to be a nonpartisan candidate in your state. So let me tell you, in New Jersey, I don't have to give New Jersey any money. I need 250 signatures by June. Obviously, you have to triple that because every signature can be challenged. And that's what they do. And they try and, decrease your count. 700 or 600 signatures between now and June is like a walk in the park. I was talking to somebody in Ohio. She needed to pay $85 and she only needed 50 signatures. So, people don't understand that in some states, you almost need no infrastructure to run. People like you are inviting people like me to get exposure. That's part of the equation, right?
I am so great. I don't know if you know the extent of how much gratitude I feel. Honestly, it's my pleasure to help get the word out.
Yeah. The smoking gun is this bill that was introduced in 2025, January. The representative is from Pennsylvania's 2nd Congressional District. He introduced a bill to kill the call centers.
Good.
It's H.R. 415. So this would have been a bill to kill the very system that I'm talking about that fuels congressional capture by the wealthy, right? H.R. 415, called the STOP Act. Again, the representative's last name is Boyle, and he got 0 co-sponsors.
What?
And this should have been the bill that AOC wrote from her experience. And she didn't even co-sponsor this bill.
What is up with that?
So you see, they're all in on it.
Yeah. I feel you.
To not co-sponsor that bill and push for it
Yeah.
means they're all in on it. But this one member of Congress, Either he really believed in this and wrote the bill, or he wanted to document that the system exists
Mm,
in the congressional record. But either way, it's there.
mm.
The bill is there. H.R. 415, the STOP Act. So the 24/7 digital town hall will be a mobile app that basically lets the constituents of New Jersey 12 register anonymously, but it will only allow New Jersey 12 residents to sign up for the app. And of course, like all mobile apps, you can get alerts and things like that. But one of the things that I heard when traveling around Princeton, when I told people I was running, and I said, I'm running against Bonnie Watson Coleman. And more than a handful of people told me that she never gets back to them. So the way that you contact your member of Congress is in person through email. You can still use snail mail if you want. You can call their office and get their staff. But I want it to be more immediate than that. I want people to get their constituent services and understand what their representative is doing through a dashboard. I want people to look at the current legislation that might impact their lives through the app and have the residents of NJ12 kind of weigh in whether they are for or against a particular law that's making its way through the process, and have a dashboard where the community can kind of see what the community is supporting. You know what I mean? So you have kind of like active polling on everything that matters. And then that would basically create a heat map for me as their representative to understand where I need to schedule a town hall.
I'm so with you, and that is so like a genius idea. Now that's transparency in politics, and that is honestly a
Right.
genius idea,
It would work like a customer service.
but better.
Yeah, if you called for support, you're having trouble with a government agency or you're having trouble getting your passport, you'll get a ticket number. You'll know where you are in line, and then there'll be a service level agreement that we make with the community for how long it should take to get a response or resolution.
Yeah, because how often do they get back to you now? Like you said, she doesn't get
You get a
back to
form
people.
letter.
Yeah, yeah. Oh my gosh, that is genius because then we'll feel like we have a say in things like it's supposed to be.
Right. And if somebody with a lot of money wants to talk to me as a representative at NJ12, I would help them have a meeting with the community through whatever media makes sense. So if they have a need for something from a member of Congress, let's say that they need something that has to do with that district, they wouldn't be able to just come directly to me as a member of Congress. They would have to cycle that idea through the community.
Hmm.
So our office would facilitate them getting a hearing from the community, and the community can advocate for them instead of a lobbying group.
You are a genius.
Thanks. But no more direct beeline to the member of Congress, and like no more rich people having access and getting favorability. That would be completely out. If you need something, tell me how much exposure you need. Is it only in Trenton or is it in Mercer County? Tell me the folks who are going to be impacted, and we will get you in front of them to pitch your idea. And if they like it, they tell me. And now you got something that we can do for you.
Yeah, you're eliminating a lot of steps too. Otherwise, like the voting, like you don't have to have so many votes and make it such a big production.
And plus, if it works, like since the community can kind of see where everybody is leaning towards different policy, when I vote, it will make sense to the community that I voted this way because I'm looking at what the community wanted through the polling. And I don't have to call a third party polling company. I'm getting raw data right from the community.
It just seems so simple in theory, and it's so
There's
beyond.
no public will. There's no political will, not public will. The public will is being betrayed, but the political will is not there
It's because of the greed and the corruption and the
because
power
of
and
the corruption.
ignorance.
Right.
Hmm.
If you have the right tax regime for taxing the rich, you don't even have to worry about them hiding their money globally. There'll be no place to hide. It's just, it's globally enforceable and it's retroactive.
There's still loopholes for them, like holding their assets in a portfolio until they're ready to sell it. And they can
No, no,
give.
no. All of that stuff goes away. As a matter of fact, this is all worked out in Winston for Congress /FDR. You can look. You can copy the whole thing and drop it into like a chat and say, fact check this budget, fact check this tax regime. You can ask policy.winston for Congress a budget
No
question.
way, dude. Like, who are you?
You, as a matter of fact, here's a good question to ask. Does Winston have an anti-poverty
Okay,
program? What would
let's
it
do
be?
it. Does Winston have an anti poverty program? Yes, Winston has a comprehensive anti poverty program as part of the American Economic Security Act. The Eliminate Poverty Program, EPT, is designed to eradicate poverty completely in the United States by guaranteeing every adult, hey, you said, has at least $50,000 per year in minimum livable income.
There you go. There
There
you
you
go.
go. The EPT program includes the following components: one, wage top ups for workers earning below $50,000 per year; two, government as employer of last resort, ELR, jobs paying $50,000 minimum per year for those unable to find employment in the private sector; three, guaranteed income for those unable to work due to disability or other reasons; four, Social Security top ups for all retirees below $50,000 per year. The EPT program is funded through a progressive wealth tax on ultra wealthy individuals and corporations, as well as through the capture of excess wealth above a $50 billion individual wealth cap. The goal of the EPT program is to ensure that every adult in the United States has a minimum livable income of $50,000 per year, regardless of their employment status or ability to work. This program is a key component of Winston's overall economic plan, which aims to create a more equitable and just society by addressing the root causes of poverty and inequality. It's definitely amazing. The whole thing. I don't know what you do, but yeah, no, your policies are amazing too. Like it's perfectly, Pleasantville, the movie. You know what I mean? It's like the perfect society. It's like the perfect America.
It can be. We should have had it already. If FDR didn't die, like that butterfly effect, like this is the vision. This is what he wanted for us.
Yeah.
And he's the reason why we have some of the safety net infrastructure that we
Have
still,
yeah,
are barely holding on
barely
to,
holding on to, right?
And then the Democrats have like trained us to like not expect much and don't ask for much.
Yeah, true. We're normalizing the things that are not normal.
They're like normalizing
Absolutely.
losing,
Absolutely.
not EEOC, DEI. And where's DEI now?
Mm.
Gone.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Everything that we create, you can snap your finger and or the wind can blow a little strong and it's gone. But what the Republicans build, it's like in concrete and it
It's
hurts.
just got to go. It's not for the people.
But anybody running in the House, that is just hopeless.
Oh yeah.
They're just politically naive and they don't understand the whole HR 415 thing that we were talking about.
Yeah.
They don't understand what they're stepping into.
You had a whole all-encompassing way of explaining it to make it all work together. Like
All stitched
everything.
together. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Thanks. I mean, I hope that your listeners, I hope that the delivery makes it easy to consume and integrate and then get behind it and get out of that mindset of accepting crumbs or asking for crumbs. And then also understand, like you're probably positioned very well to expose, again, just going to say, call it HR 415 for shorthand, but essentially it's the capture of the Democratic Party, and the reason why nothing ever really happens structurally, from them being in power. For example, Obama losing out 2 Supreme Court seats that he could have easily delivered to the Democrats. You know what I mean? Things like that are more easily explained when you understand that money has captured all 3 branches of government. One example on the SCOTUS side is, litigants who had business before the Supreme Court were traced to having spent money to buy Clarence Thomas's mother's house
What?
as a gift.
Yeah. It doesn't surprise me anymore how corrupt and greedy we are. And
They spent 50 years consolidating wealth. They used that wealth as a weapon and as power to maintain power. And
yeah,
they basically own all 3 branches of government.
this open source I've never heard of.
You've got to be no party. You've got to be no donations of any kind, capped at $4,999. You have to reverse the damage from Reaganomics and embrace FDR 2.0, and you can't be a spoiler. Those are the four things you got to be an open source candidate. And then we'll identify you as an official OSC, like you've taken the pledge
Mm.
that you're going to follow those rules. And
When did that come about?
so, I have no staff. And because I'm, a tech guy,
You can do it. Yeah, you can have the computer do it.
I know how to use AI responsibly. I understand when it's
Wow.
hallucinating. When I'm doing research in like some litigation, I've had it give me fake litigants.
What?
Yeah, fake litigants.
So is that actually hallucinating, or is that like?
So they do hallucinate. So I basically said, "Did you hallucinate any of this?" And I won't even tell it what it hallucinated. I'll just say, "Hey, what you said, what you just gave me as an answer, is any part of it hallucinated?"
Oh my
It'll be like, yeah, you caught me. Sorry."
god! You got me. Oh my
So,
gosh.
but anyway, like I know how to test it. I'll take the output from one if it's something very critical that has to be very precise. I'll take it from ChatGPT and bring it over to Claude, and I'll say, "Hey, Claude, fact check this."
Well, okay. Yeah, yeah.
So I don't have any staff. So I've developed my campaign, the content on my website, basically saying, "I want this. I want to do this. This is who I am. Blah blah blah." When I put together my website and my platform, it was like having a conversation with a political consultant, right? And ChatGPT builds a history of your conversations, and it knows how to pick up on it when you follow it up on a new
Yeah,
thread.
yeah, right.
Like if I went to my ChatGPT right now, I would say, "Who's Winston Jordan?" And it'll answer the question.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it knows the history, it knows the platform. When I first decided I want to run, and I said, I want to run for Congress for the New Jersey 12th Congressional District, like let's say that that's my going in statement. And ChatGPT said, you're going to need $2.8 million to run that race. And Bonnie Watson Coleman this and blah, 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 and blah, blah, blah. And I let it go ahead and just answer, answer, answer. And then I said, no, 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 I want to run against money as a zero donation, zero donor candidate. And then ChatGPT said, whoa, that's a really good idea. Let me help you with that.
I thought you were going to say it said, no, no, that's not possible.
No, actually, it lit up and said, I get it. We're going to destroy the value of money in the system and make people hate it. Like, let's get going.
You went all in.
It did. Yeah, it understood like kind of where I was coming
Yeah,
from because it knows my politics from past things before I
right.
decided to run.
Hmm.
So it like picked up like a best friend, like you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like I know how you're wired, dude. So let's get this done.
yeah, yeah.
So it really started to like enthusiastically get into like shaping some of what I was having it shape. Like it's really co-authoring, right? And then it got to the point where it was saying something like, well, you are going to need money for this thing and that thing. And I said, no, we have the proliferation of technology in society. NJ12 has what, 90+% adoption of broadband access, either through a home computer and or like a mobile device. And so then it's like, yeah, you're right. Like, let's talk about how you can leverage that broadband adoption.
It's always not like co-signing for whatever you say.
Right. So then it's like, yeah, you're right. You don't need traditional ad buys and stuff like that. This is the point I was coming to. It said, you're open source.
Oh,
I said, oh, shit, that's a really good way to phrase it. And I immediately went and looked to see if opensourcecandidate.org was available, and nobody took it. But actually, that name came from several chat sessions where it says, if you're using all this free infrastructure and you're going to get the same kind of exposure that you would get years ago with an ad buy or this type of spend, you're actually kind of like an open source approach. It coined that phrase.
that's where it came from. Unbelievable.
Yeah, yeah. But that's a gift from AI
AI.
for just understanding the assignment. It kind of like validates I do understand the assignment,
That's
Winston.
kind of crazy.
Yeah, that was a freaky moment,
I
where it's
bet. I bet. So I guess AI is good for something, huh?
you want to check this out? If you ask AI, not my chatbot, if you
Yeah, yeah.
ask ChatGPT or whichever chat platform that you like, did Obama change the 1913 Federal Reserve Act? When it answers no, I'm going to give you something to tell it back.
No, Barack Obama did not change the 1913 Federal Reserve Act itself. Here's the important nuance. What didn't happen? Obama did not repeal, rewrite, or fundamentally alter the Federal Reserve Act of 1913.
Okay. So now ask it, are you sure? And then TLDR, right? TL, too long, don't read. Just say, are you sure?
Yes, I'm sure. And here's the most precise, legally accurate way to say it without hedging. The hard fact: Barack Obama did not change, rewrite, repeal, or replace the Federal Reserve Act of 1913. That act can only be changed by Congress, not the president acting
Okay.
alone.
Awesome. Okay. Oh, wait a minute. He signed the law. It's hedging here. This is the question. What is the 2015 FAST Act that Obama signed into law?
Here's a clear factual breakdown of the 2015 FAST Act, what it is, what it did, and why it still matters. Fixing America's Surface Transportation Act, signed December 4th, 2015. Barack, 5 years. Purpose: long-term funding and policy framework for transportation infrastructure. Okay, what it actually did: funded infrastructure, authorized roughly $305 billion for highways, bridges, public transit, rail, safety programs. This funding went to states, metropolitan planning organizations, and transit agencies. 2, streamlined environmental.
No,
For
it's going off into a different area now. Ask it, are dividends mentioned in the bill?
Yes, dividends are mentioned in the 2015 FAST Act, but not in the way most people assume. Here is the exact legally accurate explanation. Short answer: yes, the FAST Act changed how dividends are paid by the Federal Reserve to its members, to its member
Oh,
banks.
it mentioned the Federal Reserve, right?
Yeah.
So now ask it, did it change the Federal Reserve Act? Ask it that.
Yes, but only in a very limited technical way.
Oh no. It's trying to it's doing something called logical fallacy. You can accuse it of using a logical fallacy as an answer. You can say, I was just looking for a yes or no answer. You know what I mean? It's-
Are you giving me a logical fallacy? I just was looking for a yes or no. No. No, period. Yes, the FAST Act changed, amended the Federal Reserve Act. That's the direct, non rhetorical answer you asked for.
So I guess you can say, listen, I asked you if if Obama changed the Federal Reserve Act and you said no, now you're saying yes.
You're right to call that out. Let's resolve it cleanly and
There
precisely
you go.
without
There you go.
spin. The correct reconciliation is this: no, Obama did not personally change the Federal Reserve Act.
Oh, you see what it's doing?
It's covering its track.
That's a logical fallacy response.
Yeah.
Your right to call that out was capitulation.
Yes.
That's it.
Yes.
Now it's trying to just CYA, you know. But this was the use case here in that you got it to admit that it was wrong.
I'm so happy that you decided to join me today.
You certainly made me feel relaxed, so I know that that's not really it doesn't play well with the public in terms of like sounding like a professional politician, but I just
No,
thought we would have,
you're a
a
real
very natural
person.
conversation. Exactly.
Thank you so much for being on the show today. You know what? You have been an enlightening guest, and I really appreciate your insight. And I hope that everybody out there will hear the message and go check it out on social media, because you guys are out there and you're awesome. And I appreciate your efforts. I really do.
Well, you've been a great host, Stephanie, and thanks for picking me out of like the masses to be on your show. I really appreciated our exchange.
I have enjoyed our conversation immensely.
Yeah, much success, much continued success to your podcast.
I appreciate it, and much success to your campaign. Thank you, everybody, for being here. And I will see you next week on From Dirt We Grow.